welcome to another video on my channel, and this one is about English Language B, which is a subject that you can study for, and it's provided by Pearson Edexcel. So those of you who are studying this subject will find this video very helpful, I believe, and I consider this to be a sort of ultimate guide to the paper 1 because it includes almost everything that you need to know about passing this exam. So let's go on and let me tell you some important details. So first of all, the code for this exam is 4EB1. So the code is important because at centers they require you to know the code of your exam, and generally it's a good piece of information to know. Second, there's only one paper required for students to sit for passing this subject and getting this certificate. So you just need to give one paper, and there is an option for spoken endorsement, but it's optional, and I don't think many schools do it. I'm not sure. Then third, there are 5 assessment objectives that are assessed for this subject, and the 6th AO is only for the spoken endorsement one, so I'm not going to be considering that. So in total, 5 assessment objectives. If you don't know what assessment objectives are, then you should check out the specification or the syllabus for this subject, which is linked down below. The fourth important detail is that this exam is 3 hours long in total, so it's a relatively long exam compared to other exams. And so yeah, it's 3 hours long, and then it assesses your reading and writing skills only. It doesn't assess any other skill of yours in regards to English, only reading and writing. Okay, so let's go on and look at these sections of the paper. So number 1, section A, which is for 40 marks, and this assesses your reading skills. So basically how you can comprehend texts, etc., and how you can analyze them. That's what is going to be assessed in this section. Then there comes section B, which assesses both your reading and writing skills. So it'll see how well you can comprehend and then write based on that comprehension or something along those lines, and it's for 30 marks. Then comes the last section, which is section C, and it assesses only your writing skills, and it's also for 30 marks. So altogether, all of these sections contribute towards the 100 marks that this paper consists of. So I hope you understood the basic format of the paper through this. And now let's move on to the individual sections. So let's look at section A first. To begin with, you should only spend 1 hour on this section. The next important thing is that it consists of 40 marks, so basically it's the section which consists of the most marks out of all the other sections. So yeah, and also you have to attempt all the questions in this section, i.e. there is no choice for you to choose either this question or that question. You have to answer all the questions, so you should pay more heed to this section too. Now, next, you must use the unseen texts that are provided. So basically 2 unseen texts are provided to you in an extracts booklet. So you have to use those to answer the questions that are in this section, and we'll come to that later on also. The fourth important point about this section is that it includes both short and long answer questions. So yeah, they're not only long analysis type questions, but short ones too. So let me just show you briefly what type of short and long answers come. Let's look at short answers first. So these are basically questions 1, 2, 4, and 5. So you can write this down or note it somewhere or take a screenshot for your reference later on so that you remember that questions 1, 2, 4, and 5 are short answer questions, and they look something like this. So as you can see, the lines provided for you to write your answer are quite less as well, which indicates that it's not a very hard question. Students can easily attempt this question and probably get full marks. So let me just read this one. In line 16 to 20, the writer describes the immigration process. Identify one point the writer makes about the experience. So over here, the examiner is basically asking you to pick out a point from the passage without analyzing it or anything. So it's very easy actually, and most of the short answer questions are just like this or something like this, and they consist of 1 or 2 marks each. So that's that. Let's move on to the long answer questions in section A. So please remember, we're still talking about section A, which was for 40 marks and all of that. You can rewind and see. So questions 3 and 6 are long answer questions, and they require an analysis of some sort, and they look like this. So it says over here, Explain how the writer presents his impressions of New York. You should support your answer with close reference to the passage, including brief quotations. So over here, the examiner wants you to explain how the writer is presenting his content, how he's presenting the text, and what devices he's using basically. So they want you to analyze his descriptive skills, his language, his structure, form, and as they said, they want quotations to be included as well. So it is an analysis sort of question, and you have to pay more heed to these type of questions rather than the short answer questions because they will take up a lot of your time. And these are usually for 10 marks. So question 3 and 6 require you to analyze the text, and they are for 10 marks. Okay, so moving on to the question 7, which is the last question in section A. It's also a long answer question, and it's a compare and contrast one. It looks something like this, where you have to refer to both text 1 and text 2 to answer the question. And basically, it will ask you to compare how they convey their theme, their ideas, etc. And you have to also use quotations in this answer. But as you can see, this question is for more marks. It's for 15 marks, and therefore, it means you will have to write a little bit more and have to put in more effort for this one. So yeah, that was section A. Let's move to section B. Okay, so let me just state 4 points that are important to remember about section B. Spend 1 hour on this as well. It consists of 30 marks, which is lesser than section A, but still very important. And it's recommended to use the unseen texts that are provided. It's recommended to use. And the last point is that it only includes one directed writing task. So let me just go ahead quickly and tell you what the directed writing task is. So basically, directed writing means when the examiner or the exam paper tells you specifically what to write. So they might tell you to write a speech, a letter, an article, etc. And you have to write it the way they want you to, with the audience and the purpose that they state. So for example, over here is an example of a directed writing task, and it's for 30 marks, as you can see. So this is a huge portion of your entire marks, and it's just one question for 30 marks, which means you have to put in good effort and spend a lot of time on this one. So this one requires you to write a letter, and it includes points that you should include. As it says, you should include, which shows that it's really important to include these points, otherwise you might not get enough marks. And also it says at the end, think carefully about the purpose of your letter and the audience for whom it's intended. So this is very clearly said that you have to think about the purpose and the audience. So you have to identify your audience by reading the question again. If you read the question again, you'll understand that it's supposed to be a letter to your friends. It's supposed to be informal, etc. All of that. And then the purpose is going to be explanation or telling your friend like what you experienced and stuff like that. So basically, directed writing is all about this. And if you want to know more, you can, as always, see the sample assessment material and the specification, which are both linked down below. Now let's move on to section C. Section C is also a section that you have to spend 1 hour on. So in total, you spend 1 hour on each of the sections. So in total, 3 hours. Then this one is also for 30 marks. And however, you should not use the unseen texts that are given in this section. And it consists of only one writing task. So in this one writing task, don't use the unseen texts that are provided. Moving on, let's look at the writing task and what it's going to look like. So this is an example. Now in this section, you have an option. So unlike the previous two sections, you have an option to choose which question to answer. You only have to answer one. Please remember that. Only one, but you can choose from options of 3, as you can see over here, 9, 10, 11. So you can choose either of these. And each of these asks you to write a different sort of thing. So for example, the first one is a sort of article because it's asking you to discuss the prospect that traveling is better than arriving. And then the second one is a story, so it's a story writing task. And then the third one is a description or descriptive essay. So these three are three different questions, and you can choose from any of these, whichever you're best at. And you have to write approximately 400 words, and of course the answer sheet is going to be provided, so you'll know roughly how much you should write and how much you should not. And one question is for 30 marks, so when you choose your question and you answer it, yeah, that question is for 30 marks. So yeah, this is section C, and section C might be a little bit harder because you cannot use ideas from the text, and you have to be creative, use your own ideas. You should have a good plan before you start this section. Like, even if you don't make it like with your pencil on the paper, maybe you can make a plan in your head and just think it out before writing, so that you know what you're going to write and you don't make mistakes, because you cannot delete or command Z over here. Anyway, so yeah, that was all, and thanks a lot for watching this video. I hope you benefited from it in some way. I'm deciding to make more videos like this one on Ultimate Guide to Accounting and Maths, etc. Hopefully, inshallah. So until then, goodbye.